Well, hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Laura Horton-Ludwig, your minister, zooming in today from my home in Virginia. And I want to offer some words to light the chalice by Christian de la Huerta. We must shine. We must shine now. This is the goal toward which we stretch step by step in our own time, at our own pace. As our beauty unfolds and our hearts open, we become gentler and more compassionate, yet brighter, more empowered and fearless. We are needed now, all of us together. So today's story for all ages is based on a story told by the Vietnamese Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a story about the Buddha and the demon Mara. One day, the Buddha is having a quiet day at home. His student, Ananda, is doing some gardening outside. It's a pleasant day, all is well. But then Ananda looks up, and here comes Mara, a demon. Mara, the legendary villain in the story of the Buddha. Mara, the spirit of temptation and illusion, who long ago saw the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, about to reach enlightenment. Mara, who tried to attack the Buddha to prevent him from reaching enlightenment. Mara, who almost messed up everything for the entire world. This very demon, Mara, is walking up the path to the Buddha's house. Ananda says to him, Mara, what are you doing here? You are not welcome here. You are the arch enemy of the Buddha. So what do you think you're doing here now? But then the Buddha opens the door and he has a big smile on his face. He says, Mara, it's so good to see you. It has been so long. Come in, come in. Let me make you some tea. Well, Ananda can't believe it. What is the Buddha doing? But the Buddha leads Mara into his living room. He says, here, have a seat, have a seat. And as the Buddha pours Mara a cup of tea, the Buddha asks, how are you? How's everything going? Well, Mara groans. He says, oh, Buddha, things are not so great these days. You know, everybody expects me to be so evil all the time, and I'm sick of it. I don't actually want to be evil all the time. The Buddha listens carefully and he says, oh, Mara, I hear you. I really do. It's actually not so easy being a Buddha either. Everyone, he says, everybody's always making these statues of me and they're building all these temples. And it's kind of a lot. It's kind of, I don't know, it's embarrassing. Buddha and Mara both let out a big sigh. They drink their tea. And poor Ananda, the Buddha's loyal student, looks at them both, confused and amazed. Thank you so much for your generous gifts. And Jerry, thanks again for being with us today. It's lovely to have you back. After Renee Good was killed by an ICE agent this week, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, called on the people to get out and protest to meet that hate with love. But how do you meet hate with love when your heart is full of rage? Minneapolis is my city. I grew up about 3 miles from where Renee Good was killed. When I heard about it, I was so angry. I wanted to just sweep all of those ICE agents off the board of my life, our life, my city's life, my country's life. I wanted to just sweep all of them away as if they could be just disposable, just like they're doing to immigrants and the people trying to protect them. The dehumanizing and hurting other people that ICE is perpetrating, it seems, has triggered an equal and opposite energetic response in me. And I can feel it in my body like a shaking that doesn't want to stop. And just as they are inflicting violence on others without empathy, I find myself wanting to yell and rage at them. And even though, of course, I'm not going to physically hurt them, I am struggling pretty hard to remember in a real way that those ICE agents are also human beings. This is just how it is for me this week. And our Universalist faith tradition insists with great clarity that that's a problem because everyone is precious and everyone is infinitely loved. This is what our faith tells us. Even ICE agents shooting people in the street, even the people who are trying to dismantle our democracy from the inside, our Universalist faith tradition tells us that even those people are as precious and as dearly loved by the source of universal love as we are ourselves. And my head says, yeah, okay, I affirm that. But my heart is rebelling. So months ago, I decided I would use this Sunday to talk with you about why I believe the spiritual work of getting in touch with our own shadow side is a foundation for political resistance work. And I thought a lot about whether that was still the right thing to talk to you about. And even though part of me just wants to go on a rant about the evils of the administration, I still think that I can serve you better today by digging into this work of owning our shadow, because I think it's one of the only things that is actually going to help us show up with a love that is big enough to fix this mess. So let me try. Let's see how we do. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, was the one who gave us the idea of the shadow self. He said all of us have shadow selves, by which he meant the parts of ourselves we do not like very much, even the parts of ourselves that we despise, the parts of ourselves that we try to push away, disown, not see in ourselves at all. Everybody does this. Everybody has this shadow side. It's part of being human. But what Jung said was that when we push those shadow selves away, they don't actually go away. They are still part of us, so they cannot really go away. But what people do is we push them out as far as we can. We project them out away from us onto other people. And then so commonly we accuse those other people of being exactly those things we hate about ourselves and we can't bear to face. So one thing to say right away is I think people kind of get it. That is what is wrong with our president, right? Every day we see this president and his lackeys in the grip of unconscious and unacknowledged shadow material, blaming other people for the things they themselves are actually doing, and then angrily denying that that's what's happening. We see it all the time, like when Trump talks about immigrants as garbage people, Or now when Kristi Noem and JD Vance pretend that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist, like what even is that? This is unacknowledged shadow material let loose in incredibly destructive ways, projecting everything that's gone wrong inside themselves onto other people. And the harm it is doing, it's horrifying. So that is just an extremely obvious example of how a failure to deal with your own shadow material can be incredibly dangerous. And indeed, when Carl Jung started writing and teaching about shadow work, he was not doing it in a vacuum. He first started writing about the shadow in 1912, which of course was just 2 years before World War I broke out. And by 1938, shortly before the start of World War II, Jung was explicitly teaching that doing our own shadow work is essential not only for individual personal growth, which is great, but also essential for global peace to even be possible. And this is where I want to share with you the classic reading on this topic that comes from Jung's essay, Psychology and Religion. So Jung says, and of course this is in translation, if you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all their projections onto other people, he means, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. Such a person has saddled themselves with new problems and conflicts. They have become a serious problem to themselves as they are now unable to say that those others do this or that they are wrong and they must be fought against. Such a person knows that whatever is wrong in the world is in themselves. And if they only learn to deal with their own shadow, they have done something real for the world. They have succeeded in shouldering at least an infinitesimal part of the gigantic, unsolved social problems of our day. So that was Jung in 1938. Unfortunately for all of us, I don't think that Trump or his cabinet members have the capacity to do their own shadow work. And so all of us are stuck doing the hard work of constraining and containing the harm they are doing. But I don't want to stop with that obvious point today. I also feel moved today to look inward to what's going on in myself as I do this work of political resistance, because what I think about this past week, I feel so much shadow stuff moving in me. I am so angry. And if I'm really honest, I've been sitting with this, and I think it's partly because, like so many other white people, I grew up in a family and a culture that was quite racist. Maybe not overt, but it was everywhere all the time. As a child in Minnesota, back when Minneapolis was still one of the whitest cities in the country, I was taught to see Black and brown people as other. I mean, nobody came out and said it, but it was in the air that those people were different and dangerous. I am so grateful for all the opportunities I've had since to unlearn all that stuff and try to get that poison out of my system. But that was what the world made of me too, as a child. And so I think that the rage I feel today against the people in this administration, not just their ideas or their actions, but honestly against their very selves. I think all that in me is fueled by my own shadow material roaring to life, a felt need to try and push away that unintentionally and unknowingly racist little girl that I was in the past. And I tell you this not to trauma dump on you, but in case my story resonates with anything in you. And what I'm thinking today, that for me to be fully present in a way that is powerful, loving, and healing today, not hijacked by rage, but fully present and clear. I think I just need to acknowledge that racism is part of my past. I was raised by white people who had been raised in their turn to be suspicious of people of color. And also, those same people who raised me, whom I loved dearly, also tried to be good and decent as best they know how. And in some ways, they fell very short. And also, in the language of our own faith tradition, they were inherently worthy of love, no matter what, just as we are, just as even ICE agents are, even when their horrifying actions need to be stopped. Our faith tradition claims that there is no part of us or anybody else that is not lovable by a love that is way bigger than us. Some days this is almost unbelievable, or at least I find it so. But that's what our faith has taught for a really long time. And so I believe that part of the work of resistance now is to sit with everything that is triggered in us by the hateful actions of this administration. And remember that the human beings doing these horrific things are somehow still lovable. Those human beings are still lovable. And yes, oh my goodness, their actions need to be stopped. Of course they do. I'm sure many of you are going to be going out to the protest event today. I'm going to be skedaddling like right after the service to go to my local protest. But let's remember that love is actually the birthright of everyone. You, me, them, everybody, no matter what. And it is better for our own hearts to remember that even people doing vile things are still part of that larger love that holds all of us, whether or not they deserve it, whether or not we deserve it. And when our hearts are truly okay with those people having access to that larger love, our work to resist their actions will be so much stronger and clearer because it is rooted and grounded in love. And we could stop here, but I'd really like it if we could. I'd like to give you a taste of what the shadow work can be like. And so for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to invite you into a very brief guided meditation to connect with just a bit of your own shadow, if you're willing. The essence of the meditation is first to simply notice when you react really intensely to somebody else. Like if there's someone you don't know personally, but you just hate them, that is a clue that you may be interacting with a shadow part of yourself that you have pushed away. And it is possible to meet that shadow part of yourself with kindness and curiosity, like the Buddha did with Mara, the demon, in our story. So now, if you're willing, I invite you to join me in exploring just a little bit of our own shadow. So let's start by taking a couple of breaths. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can do that, or just let your eyes be soft. Taking one more breath. And now the invitation is to think of a person that you don't actually know, but you intensely dislike. Someone you've never met, but you have strong negative feelings about. Take just a moment to call such a person to mind, someone you really don't like. And now see if you can think of a word or phrase that really expresses what you most dislike about them. Like what is a quality in a word or two that you really dislike about that person? Let's take a couple of breaths for you to think on that. And now, as you think about that person with this quality that you really dislike, if you're willing, ask yourself, how do I have that same quality in me? How is that quality that I so dislike part of me? Let's sit with that for a bit. And now the invitation is to consider if you found a way to touch that quality in yourself as well. Ask yourself, how could I be kinder to that quality in me? Could I just hold it a little bit, hold it as a part of me and be okay with that in some way? How could I just accept that quality in myself a little bit? Let's sit with that for a few breaths. Thank you so much. If there's anything that you feel is needed for your heart to be okay as we conclude this meditation, please offer that to yourself. Let's take a couple of breaths in silence, and then we'll come back. All right. So if you haven't yet done so, I invite you to bring your attention back to the outer world. And I want to say thank you for being willing to explore these little shadow bits. Just that small piece of work we did now, exploring what it feels like to take back a shadow projection that we put on somebody else. Even that small moment of work has made a real contribution to liberation and peace in our world. Thank you for practicing today with me, and bless you all. Amen.